All righty. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Barry and Becky and anybody who is going to be watching this later. Um, Thank you for showing up again for, our, what are we calling it? Get to know your HCC membership, which is going to be a variety of topics, but this one happens to be a three-part series. And Becky's going to wrap it up this month with Own Your Time Calendar Strategy for Entrepreneurs. Oh, connecting us all with the world. So Becky, I'm going to let you take it over.
Okay. So I want to thank the Holistic Chamber for giving this time for topics. And I love that you say there's different topics to be had. Too often, I think that we get wrapped up in what we do in the mindful moments, and there's such great talks. But we also were business people, and that's why I was so appreciative that you gave time to both Barry and I to be able to present. And this third seminar that we're doing on workshopping basically is just kind of we talked about networking and we talked about referral systems. And what I like to say to people is, everybody's always so busy, and when we talk about how we're growing our business and what we're doing, and one of the important things for me was the time. And I never realized how important it is. But having a calendar strategy is so important. It's why I say own your time on this, because I like to start this talk out by just telling people, just out of curiosity, just kind of open up your calendar right now. And what does it look like? How does it reflect how you're running your business? Are you putting yourself in a strategic position with your calendar to help your business? So that's why I wanted to get to the next. Bear with me here because I need to go to the next page. There we go. So the discussion topics on this is more of building out your calendar to empower your business. And how you do that is what we're going to go through, and using time blocking to stay on top of your business. So, and learning ways to prioritize your calendar. So, what I always like to look at is when we're talking about a calendar, there are only three types of time that we're looking at. And the first one is your income producing time. It's IPT, if you will. We all like to use the acronyms on it and things like that. So that's the income producing time is when you're prospecting, client meetings, and networking. And the second type of time that you have is your operational time. Now that's your administrative. If you have an office, these are the hours that you put in at your desk. So you're looking at emails and back end work. And then of course there's the all important third type, which is your personal time. And this is family, health, and rest. So most people will spend their best energy on low value tasks. So we want to try and use our calendar to start identifying what are your good goals, like where are your best times, because some people are morning people and some people are evening people. So you want to make sure that you're creating that golden hour and platinum hours, which I will get into here in the next slide to show you that. So time blocking for an entrepreneur. This is when we're breaking a day or a week into smaller blocks of time to complete specific tasks. So this is where we are working with, um, when are you taking time to do your prospecting? When are you taking your time? When are you dividing those three time types, your personal time, your IPT time, and of course your operational time? So we want to identify your golden hours, and these are typically your money making hours. You're always wanting to look at that. So, when are you the sharpest? Like I said, some people are in the morning and some people are in the evening, some people are in the midday. And I always find it interesting that entrepreneurs realize that working for themselves is not the idea of, oh, I can work whenever I want. I find that entrepreneurs typically will put more hours into a day than a corporate person will. And
Mhm.
that's simply because corporate people have already been given their optimal hours of work. From typically it's 9 to 5. And you go into work and people have usually blocked your time. So what we need to teach people how to do is when you come out of the corporate space, or if you've never been in that space, is taking this practice and putting it into your business. Where you have the freedom is to determine when those hours are more beneficial. Now, of course, sometimes you don't need 8 hours. Sometimes you only need 2 or 3. But it's important to identify when those golden hours are so that you can make sure that you are taking the time to block that. In other words, nothing else comes into that time. This is time dedicated for income producing tasks. So, where to start? So, I always tell people we covered this a little bit when we were talking about networking, but just to back out to the larger screen, this is where I say you're choosing the tip of your spear. Now, the reason why I say this is because not everybody is going to be strong in networking. Not everybody may be strong in making phone calls, prospecting. Not everybody may be strong in, doing vendor shows and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're picking something. And I stop by saying you don't want to do what's comfortable, but you want to do the things that excite you, that fit your personality, that really let you be your authentic self. I'll use myself as the example here. I am not somebody who likes to pick up the phone and call people. I like to network. I like to go out and go to events, meet people to develop that relationship. So I usually will pick, networking. So this is where you look at, are you looking at your warm market to go into? Do you like to do webinars, leads, LinkedIn, networking, table events, and business to business? So then the next thing you want to do is we want to decide in your calendar which days you want to spend in the industry. Now you're going to see something that looks a little bit tailored to my industry, but it's very easy to adapt to whatever industry you're in. And since a lot of us are in the health and wellness space, what may be normal golden hours for other industries may not be the hours that you're working in. So that's why it's a great way to this system kind of just fits with everybody. So, like I said, even if it's just 30 minutes during the day, you are picking where you want to be and what you want to be doing. And then you're looking at your weekends and your in between meetings at work, before and after work. So, an example of this is that I have a colleague of mine. She's a busy mom. She has a son that has some health issues. So they unfortunately spend a lot of time going to the doctors and she's sitting. Now, what she does is she actually brings her laptop with her because she's sitting out in a waiting room while her son is in, doing the tests and everything. Of course, then she can separate and go in so she can hear what's going on. But she takes those 30 minutes sitting out there waiting and sits down and maybe she's looking at emails, maybe she's making some phone calls. So you get to choose how you direct your calendar, how you build this when you're in the sharpest. So that's when you want to carve out the time. And I'm going to show it a little bit later here in it. So you're carving out the time in your calendar for the prospect planning, for money making activities, for follow-ups, and in my case, it's pending applications because we're always making sure that we're checking up on these things. Now, what this means is that you can pick once a week, 3 times a week, but you're blocking that time for 30 minutes to say, this 30 minutes is being set aside strictly for my follow-ups. If I need to reach out to people that I've met along the way, but I'm protecting that time because these are money-making activities. Now, you can block that time in your calendar. And of course, we all know that, things come up and appointments happen, and you may have to schedule an appointment on that time block. That doesn't mean that you never get to it. It means that, of course, the appointment is more important than the time block, but you can shift that time block. So it's always up to you how you want to take care of that. But it keeps you very focused and organized with your time. Um, so that's where I think that works out really well. So I talk about calendar staples. So in my industry, I have there's 4 meetings a week that I absolutely make every week. So those meetings go into my calendar and they are a non-negotiable. In other words, those are blocked unless I have something important. I don't shift those times. So for me, it's my meetings with my team. For other people, it might be meetings with your staff, it might be calls and trainings that you have. It may be family time. You may have, I know a lot of women and men, with the children and the sports and stuff, they want to block that time. Of course, you want to do that because that's why you're an entrepreneur. You want to be able to spend time with your family. So those are the kind of things that you put on your calendar. And again, they are non-negotiables. So this was just an example of what my calendar used to look when it was, when I was doing a lot of course teaching. This was what we were looking at. But I was also starting to go into my business at the time. So what I did was I blocked off the time that I was going to be working. And then in between those times when I knew I had free time, I was concentrating on building my book of business. So I made sure that I put in my meetings, that any calls that I had, any follow-ups I had, and you can see, but I also blocked time to run appointments. So I could actually tell people when I was setting those appointments, these are the days that I'm available. And there's nothing wrong with setting that time. I think too often a lot of us will say, whenever you want to meet. And you have to remember that I think it's very important to, but when you're building a business or when you're maintaining a business, that you protect your own time. So by blocking this and saying, these are when I'm running them, you are making sure that there's always a place for it, but you've still allowed yourself to block for other things instead of just opening up your calendar and saying, gee, we can meet anytime, and then trying to shuffle around. I I say this in all honesty because this was me. Um, Spending time reading and self-development is very important to me. So I make sure that in my calendar, I've blocked that time. And I protect that time because it's my mental health check-in with myself to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do to keep myself focused and healthy. So those are the kind of things we talk about. Now, color coding is really big for me. I love to do it. Some people use, if you wanted to do it simply, I do green for your money-making activities. Blue is your personal time, and yellow is for your administrative time. So time blocking four, and I left that blank because everybody is going to be different. It depends on the business you're in. If you're a massage therapist, you have particular times that you meet with your client, and then you're able, so that those are your non-negotiables. You have recurring times so that you make sure you're not double booking anybody, because oftentimes you have people sometimes will have a separate work for work and a separate calendar for work and a separate calendar for your personal things and meetings. But that's why I love Google Calendar. And there are many calendar apps out there you can use, but I love Google Calendar because I'm able to actually add calendars to it. In other words, for me right now, I have four calendars working. I have and they all lay on top of each other. I can look at it separately or I can have it all together to make sure that I'm not stacking and overbooking on top. So I have one for my pet sitting so that I know where I am on those days because the animals can be different. And then I have my financial business with my all my appointments and meetings and dates and stuff for that. I also have my Jaja Financial email calendar. So my work calendar, when people want to book appointments, I'm able to make sure that my time block for them to book appointments in my calendar are set correctly. And then I have my personal calendar for my vacations, for trips, for special events, things like that. So that's why I like Google Calendar. And it's good to have a couple of different calendars. Just for the experience. Okay, I wasn't doing that. So again, we were talking about the golden hours and the platinum hours. So when I talk about the golden hours, these are absolutely your most productive times of the day for prospecting, making sales calls, and meeting with clients. If you network a lot, like I do, working with two chambers, I find that a lot of my time is done with my network meetings and stuff. So those are very important to me. I put in my ribbon cuttings and my meetings and all those things too. Your platinum hours. Now, this is time spent on important non-calling activities when you're not actively out there looking for work. Now, the important thing to remember here with golden hours and platinum hours is that when you set your times, now, again, people have different situations. You have family, there are times that are important to you, so you block those. But you have to remember that your golden and platinum hours should not ever be anything but money making activities. And I say this with all seriousness because I was finding myself at sometimes checking emails, sending emails, and I literally was finding time to do the things that would be better served in the hours that I know that I can't talk to business owners, that I can't talk to clients, you know. So it's important to always remember that you want to make sure that by optimizing your time, you're not taking up a great deal of time. Golden hours and platinum hours may only be a 3 hour window for some people because you've got other things going on, but you have to protect that time. You know, I can't say that enough. That's why I feel that scheduling is such a big deal and such an important thing to do. So I always kind of try and add a little bit of the process in here because the way we build our client, the way we're out there scheduling and creating our calendars is by being aware of the process and the time. This is what kind of leads into your follow-up. And so you're always looking at, you know, the awareness part. This is when you're doing your prospecting and finding your clients. And then the discovery is sitting down and figuring out where you're at with that person. Are you in a collaborative state? Are you in a possible business to business state, et cetera? We went over this process in networking. And of course, the evaluation, presentation, closing, and loyalty. So the reason why I brought just this very small part of the sales process into it is to show folks that this is why scheduling is such a big deal. Because if you aren't taking the time to remember to do the follow-ups, the thing that I love about Google Calendar is that you don't just have the ability to schedule things, but you have a task list. And that task list will show you who you need to follow up. And when you, some people will graduate and go into a CRM, but if you're just starting out or you're just in a rudimentary stage and don't want to deal with all that other stuff, this process helps to put things into a task-oriented schedule as well. So that's why I say those follow-ups are a big deal. Putting clients' birthdays in your calendars, anniversaries, any little things, those are important to a calendar and a schedule as well, because it helps to keep the relationships going. Maybe you're not working with somebody, but they're in your pipeline, so they're on your calendar. And those little reminders become subtle touch points because we don't always get a yes. We may get a not right now. And the follow up may take 7 months to a year. But when you have some of your sales process things in that task, and then you set aside the time to do the follow up, now you're creating those relationships. And it's a lot easier to connect with people. I hear it all the time. People will say, well, I haven't talked to that person in a while and I'm afraid to reach out to them. If you have what I think really owned the idea of a schedule and a calendar, by keeping these people in your pipeline or in your funnel, those reach outs, those birthday calls, those follow-ups, maybe while you were talking to somebody and they told you, hey, I'm having my first grandbaby in May. Well, you make a note of that and you put it on your task or you put it on your calendar so that in May you can send a text message and say, hey, how's that sweet grandbaby doing? I bet you're very excited. Congratulations. These are all soft touches and they're important. So that's why I put this here. So this is an example of what my calendar looks like today. As I've come into my business, you can see now where I've switched out. And now you can see where I've got my checking emails. Now on Sundays, that's when I sit down and I do my presentation prep for the week. I schedule out the things. I take a look. Now, there's a lot of stuff. You see the things in orange here. Those are non-negotiables. They are recurring items. They are automatically on my calendar. So now every weekend I'm sitting down and taking a look at how do I need to block my time this week. And you'll notice I have, like just on Monday, I'm calling business owners for that hour. I've got a couple of meetings that I always have to attend. And you'll notice the blue things, those are lunch. And because lunch is important for me, I have to remind myself to eat a lot of times. Um, and you'll notice you're feeding the dog here too. So so I'm scheduling my pet stuff. I schedule myself because without it, I would get lost in the sauce. And it's important that on Sundays you're able to frame out your week so that when you're sitting with somebody and you're networking and somebody says, hey, I'd love to get together with you, you're able to pull out your calendar and immediately set that time, which is a big help in the process of business because I used to hear people all the time say, oh, you know what? I'll text you. Let's talk about some dates. And in my business, I have to get that business on the books. I my business won't wait because as we can see right now with the market fluctuating the way it is, it's important I'm talking to people as quickly as they're able to meet. Because if I give people the space to say, well, look, I'll send you a text and we'll find some time. How many times do you forget to send that text? How many times do you maybe forget to make that phone call for a couple of days? So by being able to either get it on the calendar or get it in your task list, you have everything you need right there at your fingertips to say how your day is going. I I have found creating consistency is huge because how much energy does it take for us to start something and then go, 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 and then you get tired and you stop and say, I need some rest. It's kind of like running for me. If I don't run consistently and steady, I'll stop, I'll walk, I might even want to sit down. But if I start off at a very even pace, sometimes a slow pace, it's that turtle and hare kind of thing. The tortoise is always going to win the race. So creating that consistency in your calendar is going to start to help you create that consistency in your business, in how you're working, in how you're able to spend time with your family, how you're able to make space for that healthy mindset that everybody needs. I schedule time for my meditation. If I have a yoga class I want to take, those things are the personal items, but consistently doing that. So you're using that time blocking to prioritize your calendar. You're being intentional when creating those appointments on your calendar, and you're allowing for the downtime in your schedule. And that's an important thing to protect too. And I'll often say to people, I'll actually put downtime, or sometimes I'll just block the time and say, I don't want to do anything or talk to anybody. And if somebody calls me and says, hey, I only have this time, I will find a way to just kind of say, hey, I'm booked that time. And it's the truth because you are booked. The booking meetings for yourself, I think, are one of the biggest reasons that prioritizing that calendar and making everything right is great. And it also helps you to show up, like I say here, regardless of your emotions. What I mean by that is if I'm setting up my calendar for the week, I know what I've got to do. I know where I've got to be. I know what mindset I have to be in. And things happen. Things happen a lot. They will take us out of that space. They will try and just really wreck the mentality you have. But I found that by having my schedule organized, I'm almost able, it's not scheduling that freak out or scheduling that crying or scheduling that, what do I do? But I'm able to shift and schedule what I need to do to solve the problem. If it's just an emotional upheaval, I'm able to sit down and say, I have 5 minutes to get to work this out because I've got this going on. So I'm finding that it's helping me to emotionally regulate myself too,
Hmm.
which is a really great thing. So that was pretty much what I had. I kind of wanted to take some questions from people because this is a very personal thing. And what I've shown everybody, what I've shown here is what I teach my new agents with. But I'm hoping that others can find the way to kind of create this for themselves. And I'd be curious to hear, if you guys have any questions about it.
I don't have questions. First off, thank you, Becky. Such a great, to me, it's landing 100% with me because this is how I do things. And my calendar, I used to use Outlook. Now I switched over to Google. And I know you can have the different calendars all merged together. I kind of did away with that too because I just color code everything according to really my business. So, um, my health coaching practice is one color, and my virtual assistant practice is one color. And I'm trying to think of the now my life after parenting coaching practice is another color. So like all the appointments that have to do with that particular
Hmm.
practice, and then there's personal, and then my personal is all one
Hmm.
color. And so my blocks look a lot like yours. I love that one of the things I'm also very consistent with is, we have to be flexible too. So stuff comes up, you weren't planning on it, you got to move something. You never take something off your calendar, you just move it to a new spot, even if it's 2 weeks out. And then I use the task feature a lot. And the task feature for me has become like my post-it notes. You know how the traditional post-it notes would be like all over everything? But me, I put everything as a task that has to, that's just like a quick, hey, send this message out to somebody or check in on somebody type of thing. So I use it a little differently than you, but same premise. Everything's got a category, everything has a block of time. And including if I'm going to go to go exercise or go walking or do something, for myself, if I'm going shopping, it's on there, as a personal item. So yeah, I love it. I think it's a great practice for everybody. Barry, I'm not sure what you do. Maybe sharing that would be helpful because we all do things kind of differently, but
Yeah, I use Outlook. I'm not big on Google tools yet. I may be convinced and do some switching, but I've used Outlook for a long time. And I calendar the important things. I do quite a bit of networking, Alignable quite a bit. And so I make sure all of my networking meetings are calendared with the Zoom links, or the Alignable links. So those are convenient. And then after an Alignable meeting, I don't know if you're familiar with the platform, but you meet people, you have a 7-minute breakout. And then after that, you get a pop-up that takes you to their profile. And so I block out time, an hour usually, after that networking meeting to do an initial contact. So connect with them on social media, send a message. If it's appropriate to have a one-on-one in the near future, to request that. And so I do those things. I do block out personal time. My morning is blocked out from the time I get up until 9 a.m. That's my time to, pray and meditate and exercise a little bit, and take the dog out and just, set my tone for the day. Where I'm challenged with so I get the important things on there. Where I'm challenged is with all the networking and meetings. I would prefer to control the schedule for a meeting that, a follow-up meeting. And so I use Calendly, and if someone isn't using an electronic calendar to schedule meetings, it's so convenient because you don't waste time going back and forth. Oh, when are you available? Well, I'm not available then. When are you available? And so they go on your calendar, they see when you're available, they coordinate it with them, and they book a meeting. Well, I would prefer to use their calendar. That way I can control when the meeting is going to be, not them. However, a lot of people don't have calendars. So my calendar is out there on the internet. And if I don't have unblocked time, if I don't have open time on my calendar, they can't book a meeting. So just by the nature of how I do that and my preferences, I've got open time on my schedule. Now, there's things that I intend to do, uh, and maybe there's a way to like block them out tentatively, put them on the calendar tentatively so somebody else can still book a meeting. So that's one of my challenges with the calendar. And the other thing is just sticking to the calendar, having things on my calendar, and a meeting goes over. uh you know I'm doing some writing, I'm doing some, I have my radio show, I have to prepare for that and tape it, record it every week. I'm doing presentations, I've got to prepare the presentation, and I often don't allow enough time on the calendar for that, so I run into things. And so just sticking to the calendar is a challenge for me. But I and uh, I have one calendar, just like I have one email. I've attempted using different emails, and that just gets really hard to follow. And I think if all my stuff isn't on one calendar, um, it would be difficult for me.
Mhm.
I get
So,
that. I hear exactly what you're saying because I used to feel the same way. Some of the tricks that I've used when it comes to using one calendar, it's a tough, it was tough for me because the evolution of technology has allowed us to be able to kind of layer the
Mhm.
calendar because
mhm,
I use my Google link to book meetings the same way. But that's why I like to use Google because it allows me to have my non money, like my to block time for prospecting, to block time for network meetings.
Mhm.
I have to decide what the priority is, what I don't want to miss, because one of the layers of the calendar is actually what goes to the link. So
mhm,
I'm showing open times, but it's like I showed on the calendar. If you're working off of one calendar, that it, by blocking specific times every week for meetings. In other words, I usually pick Wednesdays is my big day for appointments. Now it's changing a little bit because now I'm working with with a couple of large employers, and we're now scheduling days to sit with their employees. So I'm going to be blocking more days now that are going to be just for those
mhm,
people to book appointments for. But for somebody that's using a single calendar, um, I guess it's just up to you. If you want to just leave it open for client meetings, then that's what you do. If you wanted to block specific times that people can meet with you so that you can still schedule other things.
mhm,
But I think it's all up to the individual. That's the great thing about it. I just love the idea of scheduling and calendars because it keeps you focused on progressing your business,
Mhm.
mhm,
and it keeps you in charge of your relationships. I actually I have a schedule. One of my scheduling things is a phone call. I make sure once a week I have two dear friends of mine that I make sure that every week we have a phone call. That's a non-negotiable for me. I do not ever book over that. I do not leave it open because it's important
mhm,
to me. But I also schedule it not at a time when I know I could be meeting with other people. So, like I said, it's just, this last slide is just staring at me. I should stop sharing
Yeah.
the screen. But that creating that consistency,
Mhm.
what it's done for my business has been amazing in the last year. It
Yeah.
takes time.
mhm,
And I made a lot of mistakes and I pushed things off of my calendar, or I'd schedule time and I wouldn't adhere to it.
Mhm.
And my business suffered, my connections suffered. And I found that by keeping the calendar and making sure that, I wasn't just leaving myself open, that I was scheduling it and holding
mhm.
fast to that and controlling my calendar that way too, that it helped my business tremendously.
Yeah.
So,
So, thank you, Becky. This has been
Mhm.
a great, I think Karen and I use a calendar, but for me, this has been a great reminder of to improve my calendar skills and be more disciplined with it.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
still working on that. I'm always working on that, but that's why I love giving these talks. And I encourage all of our members, any members that maybe they have a topic that's near and dear to them. It may not have to do with their business. It may be something that could be helpful to other business owners. to talk to Karen, to reach out and see if it's something worth having a chat about on here, because I think this is a great tool.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you both. I want to honor everybody's time. And it is kind of late in the evening for me. I'm tired. It's
Yep,
been a day. So, but anyhow, thank you for showing up, and for Becky, thank you for, sharing all that great information with us too. So hopefully people are watching
absolutely.
this replay and they'll get a lot of tremendous value out of it. All right. So
Good.
have a
Yeah.
good evening.